Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here to talk about Honey Boy. Yeah, that's right, I finally saw Honey Boy. It came out, I found out this week. It was out actually for a limited release around me. I was very thankful. I got to see it at the Green, and it was just here for a week, and I found a showing that worked well to see, and I saw it, and yeah. So it's hard to talk about this movie because it almost feels like a personal movie, like a movie that Shia LaBeouf made. Is like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it seems like it's more for him than it's more for me, because like I don't think that I would ever watch this again, but I still really like this movie quite a bit, and I think that Shia LaBeouf's performance is worth seeing the movie alone. And then the kid too, Noah Jupe. I don't want to mispronounce his last name anymore because I'm sure that's not right, but Noah J. I'll just call him that. He played Shia LaBeouf as a kid, and then Shia LaBeouf actually played his own father, and he's the best part of the movie. Clearly, I mean, just easily. Like, he every time he just feels so authentic, and I really like seeing that when you get to see someone impersonating someone that they actually know, because it always works out well. These people know these people super well, and so it comes very naturally to them to be able to put on a performance like that, such as in King of the Hill when Mike Judge would do Boomhauer. He was able to do that because the guy who called the MTV, or no, yeah, whatever channel, and this guy called his office and he was talking like Boomhauer, and so he came up with that character, and it's always great to see those kinds of performances. But yeah, let's get to the movie itself before we talk about Shia's performance. The movie, at first, it was marketed as a Shia LaBeouf biopic. And I think that is the biggest downfall of the movie, is the fact that it's marketed as a biopic, because it's more of, I came out of this movie thinking it's more of like a first chapter. It's more of like, okay, here's this specific point in his life, and let's talk about that point. And then the next movie we'll talk about this point, and then the next movie we'll talk about this point. It did not feel like a casual biopic, and I am a huge fan of biopics, by the way, and I think that this movie is in the middle, though, because of how bare bones it is and how not rewatchable it is. This movie has quite a bit of comedy. It has quite a bit of cutesy, clever comedy. I don't really want to say cutesy though, because it's not. And then it has a lot of just natural, just this raw chemistry between Shia and this kid. It just pulls you in. It makes you want to see more. And in fact, when this movie was over, I didn't know that it was over. I was like, oh, wait a second. It's been an hour and whatever, how many minutes? Like, I was really shocked it was over, and I could have honestly sat for another hour. Because, to be honest, you need to go into this movie knowing two things. This is not a Shia LaBeouf biopic, and what I mean by that is biopics, they're very accurate to history. This movie is accurate, but it's different. It's a story on its own, but it is heavily influenced by Shia's life, and so you have to know that. And then number two, this is not there. He's hardly any of this movie is him as an adult, and that's not a spoiler. It's kind of common sense because in the trailer you don't even see much of him as an adult, But yeah, this movie, he's like an adult for, I would say, like 20 to 30 minutes, maybe at the max. But all the rest of the stuff in this movie is him as a kid with his father. And so that's what this movie is all about, him and his father, and occasionally this other girl and this other guy, this adult guy, and we'll talk about that. So, overall, I like this movie quite a bit. It's on the same level as Good Boys for me, and what I mean by that is Good Boys was kind of a failure for me. It it was a good movie and it made me laugh quite a bit, but overall it was nowhere near as good as I expected it to be. I thought it would be epic. And same with this movie. It was not a failure, but it was a lot less of a it was just it was not as good as I thought it would be when I saw the article that said Shia LaBeouf biopic. And and so yeah, but I still really like this movie. I think Shia's performance is the best part of the movie, and I've said that now a couple of times. And then let's talk about you know what? Let's talk about something else. This movie's dark. This movie is depressing. It it really drags you through the mud, and it just makes you dirty by the end of it. And then there's this last like 10 minutes where you get this relief, and it's like water squirts all over you, cleans all the mud off, and then you get a towel to dry off with. The last 10 minutes really makes the movie a lot better than it would have been. Because to be honest, I was kind of near putting this movie smack dab in the middle of this list, like under Avengers Endgame. And so I was really unhappy about that, but then this last 10 minutes happened, and it was a very emotional and very satisfying and relieving last 10 minutes. And then, of course, you just factor in Shia's performance, the kid's performance. The direction was really good, but I think that the script, overall, it could have been more. Because I don't think they'll make a sequel to this movie, and I think it would be kind of silly and stupid to make a sequel, since this isn't really Shia, this is Otis. And so, yeah, just take it for what it is. But this movie is really dark. It's similar to The Glass Castle and how dark it is. It's the same type of thing. You have this abusive father, this abusive family relationship, having to be this kid and basically take care of yourself. But yeah, but it was a lot. This movie's a lot better than The Glass Castle, because The Glass Castle, it really. I don't want to talk about The Glass Castle, but it was just, compared to this movie, I mean, the only advantage that Glass Castle has is Woody Harrelson's performance, because this movie, it's a lot more, how would I say it? It's a lot more personal. It's a lot. It feels a lot more honest and truthful. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be a cutesy indie movie for film buffs who like to go see this kind of movies. And also, I really like the color. This movie, it did not. I don't think it took any color out of this movie. It was a very colorful movie for the most part, and so yeah, so yeah. And then lastly, I'd like to get to my rating, because I'm just thinking about what I want to talk about. All the rest of the stuff that I have to say is spoilers. So my rating for this movie, you guys are going to be so shocked. My rating is food poisoning, and then taking Pepto-Bismol and feeling relieved, because this movie, just the whole time you're feeling awful. This whole movie, it just, even with all the comedy, you just have this sort of uncomfortable, sort of really dreadful feeling, and And then at the end you get this great relief of that feeling, and it's like you took Pepto-Bismol and it made you feel better, and you were able to go back to sleep. But the most of this movie, though, it feels like you're having food poisoning, and like you're just you're going through hell. And that's not it's not the fact that his father is a horrible person, because he's not. It's the fact that the movie, the sort of perspective that you have, kind of makes it look like he's a horrible person, and then at the end of it you get this different perspective that like turns the whole movie over, and just completely makes you rethink all your judgments and your feelings that you've been thinking the whole movie. And so, yeah, food poisoning with Pepto Bismol. Now, this movie's biggest weakness is it's not rewatchable, and I would have not gone to the theaters to see this, but Amazon won't release it for like a couple of months, so I had to. But yeah, this movie is just not rewatchable. It's got its moments, but overall, there's just a lot of uncomfortable moments, and even knowing the stuff that you know at the end. And let's just talk about this guy. He's a war veteran, and now I think that's a problem too. This movie's got some script issues, because he's definitely, for real, a war veteran. And so I think that should have been made clear. It did not seem like he was. We have a lot of movies nowadays where you have these fake war veterans, and they're the whole movie they're like, I did this and I did that, and then at the end it's like, oh, I was never actually in the war. And in this movie he's got some stuff. He has some clothes that he wears that suggests he was in the war. But with knowing this type of movie, this type of character, this dysfunctional family portrayal, you're not really sure if he was in the military or not. And I think that would have really helped the movie to flesh it out more. And but at the end, you have this guy, and he was labeled as a sex offender in this movie because it was an accident. It was something, it's very fuzzy. I think they did that on purpose so that you wouldn't cast too much judgment on him. But something happened that labeled him as a sex offender, and then he went to prison, and he got out, and he basically, no one will hire him except for his son. And so the whole movie is just, it's like, it kind of feels, the whole movie, like he's just a lazy abuser, loser. But then at the end you realize, wait a second, he's this whole time it's because he can't do anything else. His son is the only one who can help him, and it's like, oh my god. And then and there's this beautiful moment where after basically both of them, it's kind of like an 80s movie. Oh, I'm sorry, oh, it's too late kind of moment. In a lot of 80s movies, there's a moment near the third act where the main character is revealed to have been bad the whole time, and then both of them kind of go their separate ways, and then they have like a sad montage. They do that in this movie. And both of them go off and kind of just take the time to think things through. And then the next day, the father comes back, and they make a pinky promise to change things, to change their relationship, and to try to be better for each other. And I really like that a lot. That was the moment for this movie where it felt like the medicine was starting to kick in, and I was starting to feel very happy. Whereas the whole movie you're feeling really depressed and sort of like, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. But and let's talk about another issue with the script. This movie, he's hardly ever an adult in this movie. which is very disappointing because most of the time in this movie he's this adult who's in this rehab facility, and it's basically him doing therapy exercises, therapy in general, and I like that quite a bit. At the same time, though, uh, I thought that it was kind of weak. It was kind of like unnecessary. Like you could have just had him as a kid, and then you could have shown him as an adult at the end, and then that's it. To be honest, because I was expecting, since I went into this movie thinking it's a Shia LaBeouf biopic, I was expecting more of it to be him as an adult, acting in these movies, doing the thing where he put the bag over his head and said, "I'm not famous anymore," and the moment where he slapped Alan Cumming on his ass and at the cabaret showing and then got arrested there. I mean, I was expecting more of that type of thing, but even if they didn't show that kind of stuff like the hot topic, hot button moments, I was at least expecting more of him as an adult, and so yeah, that's an issue. But then there was some really cool things in this movie where they would show little hints of things and then they would come back later in the plot and they would be fully revealed. And what I mean is the whole movie, Shia LaBeouf is going somewhat on the side of the highway and he's messing around with the dirt. You don't know what he's doing. You're like, what's he doing? The whole movie, and then at the end, it's revealed that he was growing weed on the side of the highway, and that was really cool. And there's a funny line that went along with that too. And then my favorite part of the whole movie is the part where adult Shia goes back to the motel that he stayed at as a kid, and his father is still there apparently, and he is basically dressed up as a rodeo clown, and then he comes out of the door and he starts doing these tricks for his son, and it's like a really sort of emotional moment. And then they're sitting by the pool and he says, "I'm going to make a movie about you," and then his dad says, "Well, make me look good, honey boy." And then his son rides off on a motorcycle, and now it's reversed, and the whole movie his son was on the back of the motorcycle, and now it's his father that's on the back of the motorcycle, and that was a very 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 sweet and awesome moment. And but then it's revealed that his dad wasn't there, and I was kind of like, okay, that's kind of confusing, because you can misinterpret that to say he's dead, to say that he ran away, to say like he's in prison, like what? I don't know. That was kind of awkward, logic wise, but it's still a very beautiful, very good moment. And one last thing I'd like to talk about is there's a female character in this movie named Shy Girl, apparently, and she's played by an actress named FKA Twigs, and I'm not making that up. And she basically plays this teenage girl, I guess, that's sort of really nice to the 12-year-old version of Shia, and they sort of hang out and she comforts him, and they do a very poor job of clearly defining her character and giving her character an ending too, because the whole movie it builds up to where she is getting closer and closer to him, and then she sort of just exits the picture. And I thought that was very weak as well. And I think maybe that's just what happened in real life, but I don't know. I think that was very poor, and the fact that they don't really explain if she's a prostitute or not, because at one point Shia hands her some money, some cash, after they've hung out the whole day, and it's like, is she a prostitute? Is she not? Or what? And so yeah. And it's specifically after they kiss and after they're like starting to cuddle. And so I'm really not sure. Her character in general, it's just I thought she would have grown up to be his love interest, to be honest. Like, really. I mean, they had great chemistry too. I really liked her acting. I'm just criticizing the writing. But overall, yeah, very good movie. This might be in my top 10 of the year. It might not be. I have to see how I feel. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Wow, this has been a long video. Goodbye!